Скъпи, красиви хора, всички, които гледате банкноти от имоти, добре дошли. Епизод номер 43 ще ви срещне с един международен ентусиаст. Матиас Цайтлер е германец, който продава своят успешен стартъп в Австрия и се мести през 2016 година в Банско, за да може да направи coworking място, което последствие прераства в бизнес с организиране на различни фестивали. Причината, поради която той днес ми гостува, е смелостта и лудостта му, в добрия смисъл, разбира се, да разшири бизнеса си, като закупува стар комунистически хотел от 17 000 квадратни метра в, забележете, Семково, Белица, с желанието да го превърне в уникален проект за така нареченият Coliving проект Семково. С Матиас поговорихме за толкова много неща и най-вече за трудностите и идеите за този проект. Конкретни цифри. Особено ще бъде интересно за тези от вас да разберат как е финансирал самата покупка и как чрез изграждането на общество създаваш инвеститори, които са готови да крачат с теб към ваша обща бизнес цел. Предаването също така и отговаря на въпроси дали е добре да инвестираш в такъв тип бизнес, какво предлагат coworking и co-living местата, разбира се, конкретни цифри, за които говорихме и за това колко може да спечели някой, ако е директен инвеститор. Разговорът беше изключително интересен, защото това е един интелигентен човек с много смелост, но като всеки един от нас със своите страхове и притеснения, които той обясни в предаването как ги бори и от какво естество са. Гледайте и ако този епизод ви хареса, знаете какво да правите. Споделяйте, пишете, коментирайте, предлагайте, защото много често чувам обратна връзка, че искате да чувате истории на хора, които оперират не само на Софийския, Пловдивския или Варненския пазар, някъде в другите части на България, а дори и международно. Ето ви, чужденец, решил да инвестира в България, огромна инвестиция от десетки милиони левове в нещо, което е супер различно и нетипично. Ще чуете конкретни цифри, конкретни съвети и много опит. Това е банкноти от имоти. Бизнес предаването за елитни инвеститори, което образова и вдъхновява. Матиас Цайтлер, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Welcome, it's a pleasure. What brings you in Bulgaria and how did you come here and when did you come?
So I came about 10 years ago and I was looking for a place for myself. So I was just exiting my startup business. It was not a super big exit, but it was big enough that I didn't have to worry about working or money anymore. I traveled a lot.
So you have achieved financial freedom from selling.
So I achieved financial freedom enough to come to Bulgaria. Maybe not to Tokyo, but and I'm originally from Munich, so I love the mountains. And a friend of mine mentioned Bulgaria. It has a lot of mountains. It's a Mediterranean climate. It has a lot of flights all over the world if you like to travel. So I came here with a few friends. In the summer, we looked at Bansko, a tourist destination, and I really liked it. And together with another friend of mine, we decided, okay, let's build a co-working space there, basically to invite some friends and enjoy the mountains together.
So the first business project started as a business project or something to accommodate friends?
It was mostly to accommodate friends, because when you look at the market for co-working spaces worldwide, you would probably not pick like a place with only 10,000 people where nobody really needs an office space.
No.
So, but for me, this was an idea that people that can work from wherever, that can work from a coffee shop. Maybe it's nice to have like a shared office together. But we focused a lot on activities. So we didn't really focus on the 9-to-5 grind. I think we probably had the biggest board game collection in Bulgaria. We had...
Не се сърди човече as well? With, I don't know how to translate it in English, but не се сърди човече? Anyway, kind of a board game.
So many games, the bicycles. We did a lot of activities. So we normally had at least 1 or 2 events per day. And this
what type of events?
Going for group dinner, for potluck, going to the hot springs together, going up in the mountains for hiking or biking, going on day trips, going rafting. A lot of skill shares. So a lot of our members that came to us, they wanted to share their experiences in life, talking about marketing, sales, organizations, also like personal development, meditation, yoga. So we had a lot of people that created this community together with us.
Beautiful. You are coming from the computer software building business, right?
Yes, my background is enterprise software. I was a product manager for many years. There's old pictures of me wearing suits and ties and going to trade shows.
Do you miss it?
No, I don't miss it at all. But it's interesting to see how my life has changed because I haven't worn a suit for the last 10 years or so.
Never too late.
But I have a whole wardrobe of custom tailored suits. So there was a different point in my life where I was living more like this corporate business life.
Great.
And then at some point I decided maybe this is not what life is about. And I moved to a small place where everything is in walking distance and where you're surrounded by nature.
All right. So you're coming from a software, your background is software. And your first investment in Bulgaria is real estate. Did you have some previous real estate investments or not? In Bulgaria or before, in Austria and Germany?
I mean, of course I owned an apartment before. This is not my first real estate. But also when I came to Bansko, I didn't see this as a real estate investment, even though when I sold the co-working space, it turned out I made the most money on the real estate aspect.
Of course, it's always like McDonald's. It's, raising the value of the building.
But I saw this really more as a hobby. So when we started, we had just a very small office, maybe for 10 people. And also in the first year, we were only 10 people. So in the end, we were about 150 on average per month. But when we started, it was very small. It was really just my friends and just a reason for them to come and visit and explore this country.
So it was called Co-working Bansko.
Yeah, Co-working Bansko.
The year is 2016, right?
Yes.
All right. Tell me a little bit more about what it was like. What did you buy? Did you rent or did you buy?
So we bought and we rented. So we rented some locations. And
Tell me a little bit more about it.
So what we bought is we bought a small house, like a single family home with a big garden. And turned this into what we called our quiet workspace. So we separated workspaces by productivity level, basically. And of course, if you're in a city like Sofia, it's easy to rent or buy 1,000 square meters of office space.
Yep.
If you're in a place like Bansko, there's no big areas like this.
No,
so we had
not a lot of office buildings, right?
So we had multiple locations that were between like 100 and 150 square meters.
Under one brand.
Yes,
and you would send people to different directions.
Yes, but also Bansko is like very walkable. So everything there is like in 10 minutes walking distance. Also people live in different parts of Bansko and then it's easy for them to go to different places. Like in the winter, for example, we had a location closer to the ski lift, to the gondola, for the people that come for the ski season. While our main location is in Old Town, which is more like year-round destination.
Great. And you bought and you rented just to give it to people who would like to work over there.
Yes.
Did you supply some type of like living area, like co-living or accommodation?
So we had some partnerships with local landlords. So of course in Bansko you're surrounded by people that rent out apartment to tourists.
Okay.
And we educated them a little bit that if they want to rent out for long term, especially more in the off season, this can be good income for them. So we created a website, a platform with all the local hosts to make it super easy for our members to find accommodation around Bansko.
All right. Do you remember how much you bought the house for?
So we bought the house for about 35,000 euros.
35,000 euros.
Yes.
And renovation costs to bring it up to the level that you wanted?
Not a lot. And then I think in the end we sold it for about 140,000. And this is within 8 years, right? So this is like pretty good investment.
So you made like a triple on,
yes,
even more probably with some renovation costs, a little bit less, but was it a good investment, do you think?
I think it was very good. I mean, I also bought a few apartments myself that I then rented out to our members. And also of those, it was very similar. So basically within 8 years, the real estate there tripled.
I have to be very honest with you. I don't know much about the co-working or the co-living part of the real estate investment world. Is it a good investment? Would you advise people to invest in co-living or in co-working? Let's start with the co-working. Do you remember some ratios, some numbers, some digits, some percentages?
So I guess it always depends where you are. If you want to build a co-working empire in a small little rural village, I would advise against it.
Yes, you don't have much
but
demand.
Of course, if you look in larger cities, it's more like the flexible office space. And I think this is the future. So companies want to be more flexible how much space they need. If you're a startup, you might grow. If you're a scale-up, you might contract. So I think flexible office space in general is a very good category. And of course, because you provide additional services on top of the actual rent, there's also a higher margin. But you need to be in a space where people actually want to have flexible office space.
Beautiful. In Bulgaria, which places are the perfect ones for that?
I mean, obviously, it's the center of Sofia. So I remember when I first came to Bulgaria, there was only Beta House here, one co-working provider.
Yeah.
Last year, there was a big co-working conference here, European co-working conference, and they had a tour, and they counted over 150 co-working locations in Sofia alone. So the market has really kind of exploded over the last few years.
On that conference, and when you were talking with other co-working owners, do they share if it's a good business? Do you know of any return on investment percentage-wise?
I mean, when you talk to people, often they complain they're not making enough money, but then when you look at the parking lot, what they drive, it can't be too bad.
It can't be too bad. What is not enough for them? Have you heard about what is the average return on investment per year? Any idea?
It really depends. I mean, there's a lot of data worldwide, but it's really relevant to the local market. So normally in co-working, what you can do, you can double the space rent. So if you rent real estate for 15 euro per square meter as a flexible office, you can probably generate about 30 euros per square meter.
Okay.
And then it depends on like your costs and how you run it. Some of these places are fully automated. Some basically rent to large companies where you have very little turnover. So it depends a little bit on the operator, but I know quite a few people that are very happy in this industry.
What about your project in Bansko? The people who came to stay, how many days did they spend per average?
So most of our members came between 1 and 3 months.
Where from originally?
From kind of all over the world. Of course, a lot of Europeans, but also like a lot of Americans. Also, this was when Bulgaria was not in the Schengen area yet.
Mm-hmm.
So for people that are location independent and travel a lot, Bulgaria was a little bit the escape from Schengen. So they can stay 90 days in a Schengen country and then they came 90 days to Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
This is now over a little bit. So we have less of these Schengen refugees coming. But there's still a lot of people that kind of travel in this 3 months period.
How did you manage to attract them to come? States, Europe? Was it through an advertisement, word of mouth? How did you manage to do that?
So it was mostly word of mouth. Before I started this, I was a digital nomad myself, so I traveled a lot. And the first group of members that came were really my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Later, it became a little bit more structured. So one thing that worked very well for us is to organize events. We started to organize weekend events around different topics, like for freelancers. There's a movement called FIRE, Financial Independence, early retirement type of people. We did an event around crypto. So we attracted people for a weekend, also travel bloggers. And because our biggest challenge in the beginning was people didn't really know, should I come to Bulgaria? What is going on in this little town? This is all a little bit weird. But if you come to an event, you know, oh, there's a program, there's people, there's a limited time span. And then we started to expand this into a bigger event, into a festival event that we run for 1 week, the Bansko Nomad Fest.
Bansko Nomad Fest came from, is an idea.
Yes, so initially it was really like a marketing idea to showcase everything that you can do in Bansko and compress it into 1 week.
I love it. You have created a business and you attract potential customers through another instrument, like through a fest. What does Bansko Nomad Fest mean? What are you festing about? Or like, how did it go? How many days? What was the idea?
So the idea was like a festival, a combination of networking opportunities. We also managed to get the big theater from the municipality, which has a huge auditorium to sit a few hundred people. So we had presentations in the morning, mostly business topics, but also personal development. Then in the afternoon, we gave people an opportunity to participate in what we called unconferences, where basically people unconference, so not like an organized conference where you have a speaker, but an unconference where everyone can be a speaker to a specific topic. We took over the municipality city park and put up some tents, so it had like a really like a nice feeling. We also used like all the touristic opportunities around Bansko. So we organized rafting trips. We took over the local hot springs and put 400 people in a pool where normally we have only 20 people. So, and I think this created a very interesting vibe. So it was not a pure business conference event. It was not a pure holiday, but it was a mix between these things, and it attracted a lot of people to come. And then many people that came for 1 week then decided, okay, we stay for a whole month. Many people came back outside the season and said, I've seen Bansko now in the summer, I want to come in the winter. So it really helped to promote the destination a lot.
Beautiful. And how long was that? How many days?
Always 1 week.
Always one. Is it still going on? Or
it's still going on. So I have sold it 2 years ago. When I exited Bansko, I also sold the event. It was taken over by 8 nomads that are now starting this type of festival around different places around the world. And of course, Bansko is still the biggest, the main event, but it's really interesting to see how this turns into a movement where now we bring this idea of getting people to a destination and explore it to the whole world.
Amazing. So you sold the Bansko Fest as a business, and you sold the co-working space, the house in the other places. Did you sell the contracts? Did you transfer the contracts for the rent, or what did you sell?
So we sold the shares in the business.
So the company.
Yeah.
All right, great. Was it a good business when you sold it and you said, okay, this is how much we invested financially, emotionally, time-wise, and from what we get, are we happy or not?
I mean, I was happy. So I would think for me this was a really good time in Bansko. I enjoyed it a lot, and also like the bank account grew.
So adding to the financial freedom from Austria and this, then twice financially free. It's a joke, but why did you sell?
Because I wanted to create a destination. So in Bansko, I love Bansko. But Bansko also has limitations because there's other people, right? So there's neighbors. If we are noisy at night, they complain. For the festival, we asked the municipality to close the street for us for one night.
Yep.
This was a little bit disappointing because then in the end, even though we had the permit to close the street, 1 minute after 11, the chief of police said, oh, we can't do it. We have a few hundred people there. So I was like, okay, this is not the level of support I want. Mm-hmm. And also our community said, we have now grown to a size where we're pretty much self-sufficient, right? So we are big enough to have our own restaurant. We are big enough to have a critical mass to organize transfers. So why do we need to be in a place like this? Why don't we create our own destination?
So if I see it correctly, first you create a place and then you attract a mass. Then the mass is created and then the mass needs a place.
Yes.
And was that the natural path of Semkovo co-living project being born?
I think when you look back, it all makes sense. So looking forward back then, I wasn't sure that this is the final destination because I also enjoyed being in an environment, like especially a tourist environment like Bansko, that is very seasonal. It has a lot of infrastructure available. And of course, this allows you to use this infrastructure without building everything. And when I sold co-working Bansko, the new owner also started to offer a co-living space in Bansko. And of course, the people that took over Bansko Nomad Fest see opportunities there. Just for me, this period was over and I wanted to build something new, something bigger.
Great. So how did the idea of Semkovo co-living space came besides that? And how did you choose Semkovo instead of the outskirts of Bansko, for example?
So it was a little bit of an evolution. So I've been thinking about co-living for way longer. And initially, we wanted to buy a small building in Bansko, like only 20 rooms. But then COVID came and we were like not so sure if this is a good idea. And then we wanted to buy a bigger building in Bansko with about 50 rooms. And then the Ukraine war came and all the building materials shot up in price. And then somehow I was like, okay, if it's like this, why don't we find like an underused building? And there's many of those around Bulgaria, buildings that have been built in the past and that have somehow lost their function. And I was exploring around Bansko and a friend of mine mentioned Semkovo and I saw this building there and I realized this is a really interesting opportunity because it's really big. So it's 225 apartments, over 17,000 square meters. And this means you have the critical mass to offer all the services if you have so much space. And of course, I didn't have to compete with tourists. So in Bansko, if you want to buy a big hotel that have 200 rooms, it's going to be expensive because there's like a lot of tourists. They pay like touristic rates. It's very well developed. So it's difficult there. But in Semkovo, the sellers were like a hotel management company. They own multiple properties around Bulgaria. They tried to sell this for 5 years before we bought it, and which means we could negotiate on the price, and they were very flexible.
Great. So how would you describe the project? What is Semkovo Co-living?
So I think it's an utopia. It's a place, an utopia, a place that shouldn't really exist. So it's too big, it's too remote, it's too crazy, right? Why would you build something like this?
I don't know, by the way, in Semkovo, there are a couple of other such big buildings. I've been there a couple of times, and even some of the biggest, one of the biggest university has a base over there, like a camp.
It's true. There are some other buildings. They're nowhere near the scale of our building, though. So the Technical University and the Architecture University have a guest house there. There's about 50 beds, mostly in like bunk bedrooms. And there's a small hotel with also about 40 rooms. But the scale of the building is very different. And also, what's really amazing about our building is that it has huge community areas. So the inside has a lobby area that looks like a shopping mall. It goes over 3 levels. The way how they build it, a lot of people compare to NDK. It's the same period, so they have this big architectural ideas where you feel very small. And normally you should not. That's it. And normally you should not be able to use a building like this for something what we are doing.
What were the sellers selling?
They were selling because they're a group of older men, so I met them. They bought this when they were all much younger, and they always thought that they would revive this building to its former glory. So when this was built for the government, it was really meant as an elite place. But Semkovo kind of didn't have the tourism boom that we saw in Bansko. So it became like a lost place, and most of their other hotels are on the seaside. And they invested heavily on the seaside, and Semkovo was always for them like a building for the future. But now they're all in their 80s, the oldest guy is 95, and they were like, we are not going to revive this building. So and their kids were not interested in hotels, so they are divesting of some of the buildings, and they also divested of Semkovo. But this was really good because when I met them, they saw the energy, and they all had ideas for the building. They just realized it's not them that they're bringing these ideas to life. And then
did you use some of their ideas?
No, I mean, their ideas, of course, were all hotel ideas, but they also wanted to revive the area.
But when you saw the building, you had a plan and you were looking for a building to fit the plan? Or when you saw the building, it created a different plan in your mind?
No, I mean, I was specifically looking for a co-living building.
What is co-living?
How
can we describe it?
Co-living is shared living. So similar how co-working is shared work. Co-living means that people stay in the same building, and mostly professionals. Of course, there's other aspects in life where you share buildings, like, for example, student accommodation, elderly homes. And co-living is basically for professionals to share a workspace temporarily. In our case, I think the co-living is very specifically a destination co-living. So if we would do co-living here in Sofia, for example, it would attract a lot of like professionals that come to the cities that look for short-term accommodation. In Semkovo, people come because they look for community. So they want to be in a place around nature. Of course, they need to have a workspace. They want to have a space like a gym, for example, a kitchen where we can cook together, a patio, bonfire place, pool, and so on. And then they have private space apartments where they can stay.
Are we talking about professional digital nomads or people who are considering to be like locals, internationals? How would you?
So I think we mostly attract people that are already nomadic in some extent. Because if you just want to become nomadic, it's more difficult to travel. Right? Because then if you haven't figured out how to earn money, how do you earn money in Semkovo?
Yes.
A lot of our owners are entrepreneurs that some of them had an exit, others run businesses. We have a lot of people that work for companies remotely, especially if you do anything digital, software development, graphic design, content, marketing, a lot of things where you don't have to come to a traditional office. And they invested into the building, and they will attract a lot of their friends to come. And of course, also a lot of their friends are nomadic and remote. And this is how we plan to fill the building.
Part of the tribe. So describe me the whole place. Like how many square meters, how many rooms, apartments, like tell me a little bit more about the physical characteristics of the building.
So the whole building is 17,500 square meters. It's split about 50-50 into apartments. So these were hotel rooms before. Most of them are around 30 square meters. We have some that are a little bit bigger. We have some that are a little bit smaller. We have some owners that bought 2 to combine them. And the other about 7,500 square meters are community areas. The building has a pool. We have just built a community kitchen where 150 people can cook at the same time.
Can cook at the same time?
Yes, like Master Chef experience, basically. We have built a restaurant and a commercial kitchen for people that want to have more of a restaurant experience. We have a big ballroom for 500 people for presentations, conferences. We have an area under the roof where we want to build a climbing room. There was a bowling alley in the building, so unfortunately it's no longer functional, but the room is pretty long, so we're considering just buying new bowling equipment. So the idea is really that these community areas provide the whole infrastructure that you need. We're also building, for example, a grocery store because there's no shopping in Semkovo. But the community is big enough that we have the critical mass for a lot of these facilities to operate.
Wow, that's amazing. Tell me a little bit more about the process of the deal. How did you find it? Through a real estate agent or by some contacts or by internet? And how did the whole deal came through?
So I mean, basically I found the building and then we had to explore who owns the building, which was not so easy. But we finally found out who owns the building. The sellers were a little bit cautious initially because obviously like they got a lot of people talking to them about stuff. But we convinced them that we're actually serious. And we put down a non-refundable deposit to basically get an option for the building for 1 year.
Sorry, when you say we, is it like you and other investors or we as a company?
It's a good question. So I think it means we as like the future core. So we had from the beginning, I kind of had a pre-sale strategy that even before we had the building, we had some people that put down some money.
All right, so you're already attracting capital
from the community
to fund the... By the way, we're talking about the community from your previous business in the co-working and the Bansko Fest. By the way, that's amazing to create a community, which it's not about just customers. People who share what? How would you describe your community?
I think they share a lifestyle. And they share the vision of freedom and happiness. So they travel the world. They are all doing something entrepreneurial. So these are not like accountants that are normally sitting in an office, but they all have an idea what they want to do with their life. And I think they are looking for connection with other similar people. And this is why they come to events like Bansko Nomad Fest. So this is why they stay in co-living spaces to be surrounded by like-minded people.
But the community is not only about a lifestyle. Obviously, it's about a business style. It's a place where you can find business partners, right? Because you just mentioned we as them as being part of the we, right?
Yes, but I think it starts with the lifestyle and with a personal connection.
Of course, it's always it's attraction, like same values, and what is it? It's about people liking each other. If we don't like each other, we're not going to communicate, right? If we don't have to, for example. But then if I see you're a nice person and somebody I can count on, and why not do some business together? This is how things are done. Okay, so you found a place and you negotiated the deal.
Yes, so basically I found a place. I negotiated that we put down a deposit. So we put, I think, 50,000 euros down to, for 1 year, have the right to buy the building.
1 year, great.
So we negotiated the deal, but this only worked because they were unable to sell this for 5 years.
5 years.
Right? So
if it's on a hot market.
Otherwise it would not work. But I think it was really good. So we negotiated this deal, and then I went to my community and said, okay guys, should we try to do this? If you want to try to do this, give me 500 euros just down and you will be one of the first that can pick an apartment.
Yeah.
And we had about 200 people that said, yes, this is a good idea. And then out of these 200, in the end, about 100 bought an apartment. I mean, what's important to understand, initially, we didn't really know how much an apartment would be.
Yeah, right? But they bought what? They bought the idea?
They bought the idea and a place on the waiting list, basically.
By the way, how do you create such a trust for somebody to buy from you without knowing what they're buying? What is the personal and business formula you have? Honestly.
So I think this only worked because a lot of the early buyers knew me from Bansko.
They knew what you were capable
of? They have seen what I did. They were part of the community. They liked me and they said, okay, this could be a good idea. We have seen what Mattias can do in a place like Bansko, bringing it on the map. And we believe this magic can happen again. And then they convinced a lot of their friends. So basically, I think the first 100 apartments we only sold to kind of like friends and connections.
So you're using type of a creative financing, not unconventional, not banks, or did you use banks? How did you structure financially the deal besides the attracted foreign capital?
So we didn't use banks. Basically, people bought or still buy the deed for an unrenovated apartment. So they give us money, they buy the apartments in the current state. After they own it, we help them to renovate it so that it becomes finished. Yeah,
we're going to talk about the business model in a bit, but because you've put down the deposit and then the rest of the money came from partially from the people that gave you the 500 or you personal finances?
I mean, out of the 200 people that gave us 500, about 50 then bought 100 apartments together, and they bought these apartments.
But before
we owned it, so we made contracts, and basically the same moment that we bought the building, all these contracts converted, and we had the money.
Hold on, let me clarify, sir, because it's I know what you're talking about, but some people might be confused. You have a preliminary contract to buy a property. One hand with the sellers. On the other part, you're signing preliminary contracts with buyers to buy some of that property which you haven't transferred into a notary deed to your company's name.
Yes.
That's a real estate game 10 of 10. Congratulations them. How did you come up with that idea?
I mean, I didn't have the money, and a bank would not give us the money, so we had to raise the money ourselves, and this was the only way, but it also only worked because the seller was willing to work with us on this.
But you mean the guy was waiting for a year, or he was collaborating in another way?
I mean, also like then in the end, because obviously he also had to wait for his money. So we signed all the deals at the notary, but the seller basically also had to trust that all this is working.
By the way, but are you talking here about some type of seller's finance in a way, or did he kind of like help you finance, like receiving money on a later phase? Of course, it's confidential. But
so we also did this. So because the building has multiple blocks in the Kataster.
How many?
Different. It's in total it's 5.
5 blocks. Okay.
It's really only 3 buildings, but the way how they divided it, and we had a deal with the seller to buy the whole thing, but we were able to pay only like 1.5 million initially, and then $1 million half a year later.
Beautiful. So this is, by the way, in the real estate investment world, it's called seller's finance, because sometimes people say, well, I don't have the money. Well, if you don't have the money, then find people who have it. Conventionally, banks and other people's money, like partners. But the seller's finance is like a treasury. Like if you have a seller who is willing to do business with you, because it's a way of business and trusts you and has some good contracts, and they're not in a rush with the money, they can help you, because most probably, those money that you were supposed to pay were interest free, or you paid an interest on them. It depends on the, if you don't want to share it, it's your point. But usually the people, this is how you can get a finance for the deal, just to make the seller finance the deal that you postpone the money to them. Great, amazing. So what is the business structure of the proposal? If I come to you and I say, Mattias, you look a really nice guy. I heard many good things about you, or I love the place like I do in Semkovo. I want to buy. What would you offer? And why would I buy from you?
So I think our structure is also a little bit unique. So basically our offer is people buy an apartment.
Yeah.
And you get your deed for your apartment. So this
with a notary deed.
With a notary deed, so this is your private property, right?
With a personal...
yes, with a personal deed
number
from the property.
From Kataster.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. But then the other part of the business is organized as a cooperative. And everyone who buys an apartment becomes part of the cooperative, and the cooperative owns the 7,500 commercial areas. And
okay. Are they like a common parts?
No. I mean, the common part would be the hallways and the staircase and stuff. And of course, you also have this. So when you buy your apartment, you also get a few square meters of common parts. But the commercial areas are a separate building in the Kataster, and they are owned by a separate legal entity that's a cooperative. So in the future, when the cooperative operates this on behalf of the owners also benefit from this, because they can, first of all,
profit share.
They have a share based on how many square meters of apartments they own. They can also vote in the cooperative. So I'm just an employee of the cooperative. I've been voted as a chairman, but it's not Mattias's business. It's like a community business. And I think this is also super important for our model, because we want the owners, the community, to also promote this to their friends, that they can rent their apartments, but also that this whole business will operate.
That's very interesting. Did you copy that model from somewhere else, or you came up with that idea?
So I think this is a learning from Bansko for me, because in Bansko I own the business, and this often created a little bit of friction. People were like, oh, Mattias is getting so rich from me, which of course wasn't really so true, but it's like for bigger project, I think it's better if it's more transparent. And also I have learned here, often when you buy an apartment, there's always a conflict between the management company and the owners. In our model, the owners are part of the management company, and everything is fully transparent, and it's a very different way of working together.
So if I'm stressed at somebody, I'll be stressed at the guy staring in the mirror, right? With that, like, because I'm the owner, so I have the rights and responsibilities to run it. When I was listening to you, something came in my mind. It's amazing. Usually the confident people are the people who have done one simple action many times, so they know what most probably might be the outcome. I'm completely sure that the people who bought from you saw that confidence that you can do it. Which brings me back a little bit. How important is that? Like a business lesson, probably. Start from somewhere, master it. Make sure that you explore, make some mistakes, because every single step you do on your real estate journey, for example, investment journey, is a preparation or getting you closer to a potential much bigger deal. Because I'm sure that the Semkovo was not in your mind when you landed in Bansko. Most probably it was not even the co-working place or the fest. I don't know. Probably it came, but it came with every step that you made towards a personal goal, for example, right?
Yeah, I think you need to recognize opportunities and see where's the doors it could open, and is this something that you want to explore further. So I believe this very heavily, is that you need to see where the energy flows. So don't try to force something that's impossible. See where does the water go, what's possible.
Oh, that's good. You're a supporter of that type of philosophy? Like, don't push it, just...
I mean, people that know me also think I can be pushy, which is probably true. Sometimes you have to push, but you have to be able to recognize opportunities. And very often, if you have a lot of resistance, it's not the right way. Maybe there's a better way where you have a little bit less resistance to get things done.
So Semkovo is a good opportunity, I think?
I think Semkovo was an amazing opportunity, right? So we had, like, when we talked with the previous owners of the building, this was a very good relationship that felt very good from the beginning. When I shared the plan with the municipality, with the mayor, he was very supportive of the whole idea. And it doesn't always have to be like this, right? You mentioned sometimes people don't like what you do, and then they kind of... And in Semkovo, it felt right. I think also the reason why it felt right is because there's no other people that we take something away from them. So we are bringing new energy to a place.
And a lot of investments, by the way.
And a lot of investment in an area where there's not a lot of jobs, there's not a lot of investment. So this is good for everyone. Even the people that run guest houses in the area now realize that we are not taking their guests, quite the opposite. We are bringing people. We had a lot of owners staying in regional guest houses. When we are there, at the moment we get a lot of catering. We don't want to run this as a hotel where we take all the profit. We want somebody from the community to run the restaurant. We want somebody from the community to run the shop. So this brings like a lot of opportunities to everyone involved.
By the way, when you have such a huge development next to your door, your property prices are going up. So their properties are much more expensive now with having such a economical reactor, because you're creating an economical reactor with everything that came into my mind and what you can do. So how many of the apartments are sold?
So we have sold about 190. And
the percentage-wise is?
Percentage-wise is 85%. So we are now at the tail end of the project.
Beautiful. And how much an apartment costs usually? Like, give me some numbers.
So after renovation and furniture, probably about 50,000 euros for a 30 square meter unit.
All right. So this goes less than 2,000 euros per square meter. And you get a fully furnished apartment, right? Who does the renovation? The buyer, or you by default, or
so
they can choose?
So the co-op offers a renovation package, including the possibility to customize a few things, like which flooring, for example, which tiles, things like this. And because we do this at scale, it's pretty cost effective.
Of course.
We have about 4 or 5 people out of our over 100 owners that decided they want to try the renovation themselves.
And they are.
One person has managed to renovate their apartment. And this is in the time span when we renovated about 100. Oh, okay. So one person has renovated their apartments with a company from Sofia, and he paid about 5 times as much as our renovation cost. Oh, man. And then there's 4 other people that are still in different stages of the renovation of their apartments. And it's not so easy. Of course, you think, I can do this in Sofia, but in Semkovo, there's no local contractors. We have already hired all the best people, so whoever you can find is no longer on this list of the best people. And then, of course, also when you do things at scale, it's very different. So we have more like what I call a copy and paste approach. So for us, the renovation is we did a sample apartment, and I think we did the sample about 3 times or so to figure out what is the perfect way of doing it.
Yeah.
And then we told all our contractors, do it exactly the same way.
I love it.
Now, if you do your own renovation, you basically discover all these things for the first time.
Great. How many of percentage-wise Bulgarians and how many foreigners?
So we have about 20% Bulgarians. Most of them are startup entrepreneurs from Sofia. Some of them run pretty big businesses here. And 80% are foreigners from 32 different countries. Several of them.
How many countries?
32 different countries.
32 different countries. Europe mainly, or?
Probably half Europe, but we also have quite a few Americans.
Man,
we have people from Brazil, we have guys from Australia, we have a girl from Singapore. So it's really from all over the world.
Let's take a look at buying a property in such a property. Is it a good investment or it's not an investment? What do you personally think?
So I think it's a good investment.
Why? Give me some facts.
So there's multiple reasons. First reason is that I believe that we bought this building and people buy the apartment way beyond value, right? So the value of this is much higher. We got an evaluation of just like the commercial areas, which is already about 5 million.
By the way, sorry for interrupting. I didn't get it quite. You buy an apartment, let's say 20, 30 square meters, and you pay totally renovated 50 at the end, 1,000 euros. But you not receive, you get part of the commercial area, right? Those.
So you become a member in the cooperatives that owns the commercial areas.
Do you pay for that, or it's part of the deal that you've paid for?
It's part of the deal. I mean, officially there's 101 levels that you need to pay to become a member, but you would also, if you ever leave.
Член cooperator.
Yes, but you would also get the 101 level back if you leave.
So you actually, when you're buying an apartment, you're not buying only the apartment with the common parts like you buy in a typical Bulgarian town and neighborhood. You're buying. You're not buying. You're how do I call it?
So you're becoming
acquiring
a beneficiary of the entities that's running the commercial areas.
So you're getting more assets.
You're getting more assets because once there is operations and if there's revenue and dividends, then you will also get these dividends.
So you're funding the development and the renovation of those parts with partially from the sale of the apartment, right?
Yes, only by the sale of the apartment. So basically the apartment sales finance the whole project.
Great. Let's come back to the investment. Sorry for interrupting. I just want to make sure what you're buying, because when you get the notary deed, what comes with it, bonus-wise or not. So I think I got it clear, and the people will do as well. So why is it a good investment?
So I think the value of the property is higher than what people can buy it for. Also, Bulgaria in general is a fantastic real estate market, right? So if you look at the last few years, it always went up at least 10%. And of course, the municipality has plans for the area of Semkovo. They want to build a new chairlift. They've just renovated the road, so there's investment coming in the area. But I think also a lot of people bought because they bought into this lifestyle. So it's also the use of the co-living area. So most of our investors are not pure financial investors. They invested because they want to use this property and because they see the opportunities that we have there. Okay.
So what do you benefit from as an investment? You obviously, as an owner, you benefit from everything that Semkovo has to offer. But most probably you're talking about price capitalization, like property, rising the property value.
So the property value will rise, but also because we operate this as a co-living space for the owners. So when most of the owners will come only 1 to 3 months or so, which means most of the years they want to rent out their apartments.
And what about your projections? What do you think percentage-wise will be the rate of return from renting that?
So we have the more detailed calculation on the website, and we claim it's about 18% per year. I personally find this is a very high value, maybe even too high, but we broke this down into different aspects, like how much do we get from appreciation, how much do we get from rent.
Because this is multiple streams of cash flow or income. Where do those 18% come from? Could you split them?
So I think it comes about at least 10% property appreciation.
10% per year?
Per year. Could be higher if the ski lift comes, because then the building becomes ski in and ski out.
But this is only if the market goes up?
I think the market is going up. So it would be weird if real estate goes down over a longer period of time, also because cost of construction is going up. So I think it will be hard. But let's assume that just we stay historically, it's about 10% property. For rental, we predict initially for like this apartment for 50,000 euros rented, rents at 250 euros in the first year per month, and then 500 euros afterwards once the building is up and operational. This would be in line with people pay at other co-living spaces.
Okay.
And then we also see that there's a benefit of use. So if you're an owner of the building, you can use the co-living areas for free. And of course, you're becoming part of this community. So it's like basically like a business club membership as well.
What about the potential income from the common parts, not the common parts, from the commercial parts? Do you have some estimations there?
Yes. I mean, we estimate that the cooperative will make about 1.2 million euros in revenue, and we target about a 10% yield, which would distribute another 500 euros per apartment annually in dividends. But also most of the owners initially want to reinvest, right? So as part of the business, you can decide you want to distribute, you want to reinvest. And I think for the next few years, there's many ideas for reinvestment.
Reinvestment, great. But it's still you're reinvesting into an asset that raising the value would produce more percentage-wise or as absolute amount of money. So it will come. When do you think the project will be like up and running?
So we have the first owners, so the first 100 apartments are renovated, and the owners of this first block of apartments will start using them in July.
July this year.
So for July and August, we are doing an owners preview month, also with community activities and so on. And then for guests, we aim to open in the winter season.
All right. Everybody knows that when you expect income, you have expenses. What are the typical expenses that an owner might have and then might eventually affect from the investment point of view? Because I fully understand it's a lifestyle, it's a place where you enjoy, but of course it's a good investment according to you.
So there's an annual repair and service fee.
Okay.
This is based on square meters, so bigger apartments pay a little bit more, but for the typical apartment we were talking about, it's about 800 euros per year.
And it covers cleaning and maintenance and electricity and what else?
Of the common areas in the building where the apartment is.
Oh, okay.
And of course, like if there's other repair or maintenance things, there's an elevator, things like this. It also allows the owner to use the co-living areas for free. So, and this is could be a very interesting benefit for people that spend a lot of time there, right? Otherwise, we would charge. So for a guest, for example, in our example, where we said the first year we are aiming about 250 euros for co-living usage in the first year and then 500 euros per month afterwards. So as an owner, basically, if you stay there more than 1 month, the fees that's also covering all the repairs for your place already covers all the usage of the co-living.
It's a huge project and it takes a lot of resources and time to renovate it. What are the stages? You said 100 apartments will be ready by the midsummer. What about the rest of the project? How do you see it? How much time and how did you divide it in phases?
So we have renovated about half of the commercial areas, and about 100 of the 225 apartments. We also have a pretty big team. So luckily, there's a big team working on this. So every day there's about 60 guys in Semkovo doing different things.
Construction workers or management? And
I mean, of course, also project management. We have different architects. We have planners for different aspects. We just completed like what I think was the most complex aspect. So we're building a new trafo station that is doubling the electricity capacity to the building. This was a pretty big project. Now we are working on a heating and a ventilation system. So there are some larger installations that require more planning. The renovation of the apartments now is pretty straightforward because they're all the same. Basically, it's just like one after another.
Yes.
For the commercial areas, there were larger projects. Like, for example, we also did a project for the commercial kitchen and the restaurant, which also had a lot of like legal requirements. We needed a special planner for this. The equipment is special. Of course, there's a lot of different electricity and water and sewage connections for a kitchen. So we also completed this. We are now working on the workspace, which is pretty easy, and on the grocery store, which is also like an area where you basically just need to tile the floor and put a few more power outlets.
Great. And what about the commercial areas? Are you planning to run them by the company, or are you going to outsource the management? Who will be actually running those spaces, like the restaurant, for example, or the bowling, or the swimming pool? Most probably will have some spa or something like that.
So,
What is your vision?
So our model is that we are more of a platform where other people can bring their business. So for the restaurant, we are talking with a family from Belica that already has a restaurant in Belica. They have a son that is working in Paris. He's a chef. He's looking for an opportunity.
I can imagine like a French meal in Semkovo.
So I'm pretty excited about this because the biggest challenge in Semkovo and in Belica is to find people, right? So it's an older
By the way, very brave of you, because it's not easy to have such a project when a place where the workforce is so limited.
Yes.
It's a problem.
So initially it was difficult to find people. Now in the meantime, people have found out that we're actually a pretty good employer. So we are paying our salaries on time and we pay fair salaries and we don't mistreat people too much. So now they start talking to their friends and they're like, hey, this is a good place. And
they're coming.
And they trust us a little bit more. Initially, they were not so sure because it's like nobody really believed in the project. They were like, this is not ever going to happen. And now it seems it's happening. The biggest thing for us was when we started to put all the outdoor lighting. So now at night, everything is lit up. It just looks beautiful and people see something.
I can imagine like the smell of the fresh air. I love it, by the way. If somebody hasn't visited Semkovo, I totally would agree that's one of the best places, especially when you climb up to one of the huts, and amazing. I love it over there. What are the biggest challenges that you faced with that project, like business, municipality, and companies and financing? Just summarize it, please.
I mean, the biggest challenge, of course, was in the beginning, right? So to sell like the first 10 apartments, nobody really believed in this.
No.
And it's difficult to convince people to buy an apartment in an abandoned building. Everything is
Old
broken.
Communist building.
Yes, there's nobody around there, right? It's not like a tourist place. So selling the first apartments, I think, was the most difficult aspect. Of course, there's challenges for me personally because this is my first big real estate development project. So of course, I've renovated apartments before, but a project like this, where you need to work with a lot of specialist planners, where you need permits from different organizations, this was a learning experience, also to find the right people. I mean, now I know who is a good architect and who's not a good architect, and who can actually help with electricity company, and who just wants to charge money. So it took a little bit to get into this work mode. Also finding the first few people, so the staff there, was not easy because Belica is not a place where you have a lot of construction workers. It's mostly old people. All the young people are somewhere else. So we had to cast our net very wide. I managed to find a construction manager that I knew from before, that was one of the few people in the area who has actually worked on projects of this scale. So most people work on single family homes, and this is, you can't compare. So I think we were lucky with finding the first employees, and once we found them, it started to all.
You had a moment that you wanted to give up, or you were so afraid that you were questioning your ideas?
I mean, basically every day.
Even now?
I mean, there's every day it's like there's chaos, right?
Yeah.
And you need to keep the calm and work through this chaos, because in the end it will all work out.
Yeah.
But
is it a belief, or is it when you say in the end it will work out, how can you be so sure?
Because otherwise it's not the end.
Oh, there you go. It's a philosophy then.
So, I mean, you have to push through it. But of course, if it's a big project, you make big and expensive mistakes. So, for example, for the heating system, it's difficult to know, is this now really the right system? Do we need a bigger bunker or a smaller bunker? And can we use this system or that system? We did...
and it's all about communications, by the way. Semkovo is up the hill from Belica. It's not like the best infrastructure in the world.
It's not so easy.
Or it wasn't, I don't know.
I mean, the building itself, they build it very solidly. But,
of course.
But it's also like the people in the area, often you have to ask and research and dig, and even they tell you, oh, I've done this for 20 years, and then afterwards you think they have done it wrong for 20 years.
Of course, but still believe they did it right. Mattias, you did business in Austria, right? As a startup in the software business, and you do business in Bulgaria. What's the difference? Advantages and disadvantages of the place, where you like it most?
I mean, I kind of like Bulgaria. I think a lot of things here are less organized and less regulated than, for example, in Austria or in Germany.
Which is not bad, the second part, less regulated.
This has good and bad aspects, right?
Okay.
And for me personally, I like it. It means that you can get a lot of things done. So, for example, the building Semkovo, in Austria, this would be a national cultural heritage site, and you have to have special permits and historians before you can paint a wall. Luckily, In Bulgaria, it's not like this. So people understand that if you want to revive a project, you need to take practical decisions.
How do the locals and the local businesses and municipality and everybody is treating you as a foreign investor?
So I think generally they welcome us. They might not always understand what we really want to do.
No.
But they welcome us because we don't really compete with any local business. So we bring economic development to the region, and it benefits the region. We are not trying to steal someone's business or competing with them in any way. And this is also important for me. This was also important for me in Bansko. And this is, for example, one of the reasons why we didn't offer accommodation in Bansko. Because if you're in a place where everyone is offering accommodation, you don't need to compete with this business. This is their business. We want to compete on something that's new, that's more innovative, that's bringing and adding something.
Being sold 85% of the apartments, how would you rate that investment? Is it a good investment for you and the people? Well, I apologize, for you. We talk about investments.
Yes, I mean, we sold about 5 million euro in real estate, and obviously there is some money that also ended up on my bank account from this.
Yeah. So was it a good move? Would you repeat it?
I bought another building, so I might
Tell me
repeat
about
it.
Yes, yes. Can we share this one? Because
Yes.
in the previous pre-conversation, you mentioned that, so please let me know.
Yeah, so before...
It's news for our...
So when I was looking at Semkovo, I was looking at other buildings, and I think there's many pieces of real estate around Bulgaria.
Yep.
And I found another building close to Dubnitz in a place called Maloselo that was a prophylacticum in the past. It's smaller than Semkovo, it's only 7,500 square meters. And I really like this building. And even though I don't know fully yet what to do with it, I bought the building.
You bought it.
Just in case. And of course now I'm thinking, on the one hand, I'm thinking I should not do real estate. It's too much stress and it's not a nice business, not like software where everything is great. But on the other hand, now we have built up a team. I think we have worked through a lot of the challenges. I have now really a whole set of suppliers that I can trust.
And you can move.
And,
different projects.
And I think we can move them. So Dubnitz is also kind of close to Blagoevgrad, where a lot of our suppliers are from. The architect that worked with me on Semkovo already did like a preliminary project for Maloselo. I really like him. So I think I will do next year another real estate project.
We'll be waiting for the news and we might be interested in that. But just a question, going back and working with some type of contractors. Were you lied or like failed, like cheated?
All the time. I mean, basically when we started, we worked with a local supplier and we ordered, I don't know, some stupid stuff like sand, 10 tons of sand or something. And they delivered only 7 tons of sand as the first order. And I mean, of course, we would probably not have noticed if we had worked with the supplier for a long time. It's like, but for the first order, of course, we looked a little bit closer and so we stopped working with the supplier, similar with a lot of other people. So initially we had to cycle through a lot of people. We gave them test jobs to see, are they actually good at tiling? Can they connect electricity in a way that it works and there's not sparks flying around? We used one architect, unfortunately, where it didn't work out. So we are now pursuing a lawsuit against that architect.
Oh, okay.
So there are some things, of course, that you learn. But this is what I meant. So I think it's normal that you find out. Also, like a lot of people that work with us, they started to use tools that they have not seen before. So I'm from Germany. I studied computer science, so I'm kind of an engineer, and I believe in tools and technologies, right? So of course, we bought like modern tools that you use on a construction site, and a lot of guys have not seen this, like how, for example, you cut a cable channel, how you drill through a concrete wall for like plumbing and things like this, what tools you use, what processes you use. We used like polyurethane foam coating on the roof, so we have a metal roof on a concrete structure. And replacing the metal would have been too expensive because it has like too many angles and a huge project. So we looked around, and there's around Europe and in the US, you use another process for this. You're not replacing the metal, you put polyurethane foam on it. It also insulates the building, but there's only 3 companies here in Bulgaria that work with this foam.
Okay.
And a lot of people told us, no, this is a very bad idea because they have never worked with this. And then you have...
People are afraid of what they don't know. What about the budget, the renovation budget? Did you go over it or you're within the budget?
So it depends. So we are not fully done yet. I think we are doing good.
Even though with rising construction prices and labor?
I think we are doing good, but also our projects, we work on priority areas.
All right.
And together with the owners, so we decided we have to do some things for sure in the budget, and then there's other things. For example, the climbing hall I was talking about. We will see if this is going to be phase 1 or if this has to come in a later phase.
In the later phase. With a couple of sentences, what are you planning, events or something else to strengthen the community in Semkovo? What should we expect from that place in the next months and years?
So I think we have 2 target audiences. We have individual people, digital nomads, remote workers that come basically during the season in the summer and in the winter. And for them, we will create like a co-living experience with similar what we did in Bansko, playing board games, going hiking, going mountain biking, doing presentations. But we also want to do events. So the off-season, like spring and fall, when there's less individual people, we want to, on the one hand, attract companies for vacations, for retreats, but we also want to do our own events. So we are starting our foundation now so that we can create also events around training, for example. We are doing a big art festival next year. So the idea is a mix between events that we host and events that other people host in Semkovo.
Beautiful. Let's talk about, before we wrap up this episode, we talked a lot about digital nomads. I read all the times that this country and that country make good regional or national politics to attract digital nomads because I think they're good buyers from what I've seen in the statistics, and it's good. What should Bulgaria do to attract more of the people? Because I have the feeling that we're not like on the map as much as we could be, even though Bulgaria has so many opportunities for digital nomads.
So I personally think that it's best if politicians leave you alone, right? So if they don't do anything and just keep the taxes at 10%, I think we will already be happy.
Okay.
Of course.
All right, business investors, what should do? Property investors, how to benefit from that?
I mean, also as a property investor, so I think 10% tax is a great start for whatever you want to do in Bulgaria. It's great. If you do something like invest in Europe and you have to pay 40-50% tax on profits, there's less of an incentive to do something. So just incentivize people to come up with their own ideas and unleash this entrepreneurial spirit. Of course, we did a little bit in Semkovo by renaming the street. So our official street name is Nomad Place 1.
Nomad Place 1.
And we didn't only have support from the municipality, but we also got the tourism minister to come, and they promoted this in their channels that Bulgaria is the first country to welcome nomads with their own street.
Good.
I think these are things that kind of help with positive PR, and I think this is very important. So when we promote the destination, let's focus on all the things that are great in Bulgaria and forget about all the things that are not so great. So we don't,
everywhere around the
right?
world.
So let's focus on all the positive stuff, and I think Bulgaria is a great place for nomads. Because
do you really believe that?
I believe it because it's not only the taxes, it's also the regulations. So here, Bulgaria is a very free country in many regards.
I love it. Many people don't realize that, but as you said, while I was listening to you, if you want to even paint the outside of that building, you will get like a permit, or it's going to be like a long thing. In Bulgaria, less regulated, for good or bad, but in the business, when you do a business in a positive way, in a legal way, it's good. And you're an entrepreneur because you don't have so many regulations. And we all know regulations raise the prices. What about property investors? How they can, a lot of people who are watching that will be like, okay, how can I benefit from that trend? A lot of people would come to enjoy like not only the nature, the less stress, all the resources like seaside, ski, spa, the life, the food, the many things. How property investors who are watching right now might benefit from attracting more digital nomads in Bulgaria?
So I think promotion is very important. So you need to make sure that when you want to rent out property or when you want to sell property, you need to promote. There's events where you can meet your target group. I go to a lot of conferences to speak. This is where you meet people. I know a project in Romania where the municipality is attracting nomads with different vacation programs. So this is also, if you have a property and you want to have nomads, just promote in the nomad channels and the nomads will come.
Beautiful. What about some government or municipality stimulus? Some good examples from what you know in the rest of the world?
I mean, what I have seen in some places is that municipalities help to support projects. Like, for example, if you do events, they have funding for speakers, for example. They use their channels. Also something that we benefited from in Bulgaria, for example, the tourism ministry many years ago had some funding for documentaries. And they sent one of these movie crews to Bansko to film us and bring into their channel. So I think just highlight it. Don't always focus only on this traditional Bulgarian tourism, right? So this is so super boring when you go to an event and it's always, okay, there's some gold that's a few thousand years old and there's people dressed up in embroidery. And I love to dress up in embroidery. But Bulgaria is more than the past. You need to show what you can do now in the country.
What can you do now in the country?
I can go on mountain bikes, for example, and there's no real good mountain bike trails in most mountain places here. Just make sure that if you have a chairlift, that you can also put the bike on the chairlift, that people can go uphill with it. Organize some trails, document it, where these trails are. Rafting is fantastic. So I think there's a lot of the sports activities that we can do here, and we just need to highlight those activities and not only focus on the cultural aspect. Also, like one thing I learned in Bansko is like Bansko is full of really great restaurants for tourists. It feels very traditional. If you're there for a longer time, you can't only eat Shopska salad every night, right? So people want so people want more urban food. Like nomads, a lot of nomads are vegetarian or even vegan.
Oh, okay.
What we did in Bansko, we first had to explain to restaurants what does it even mean that it's a vegan.
Oh, okay.
Then we had to explain to the grocery store what they need to stop so that the restaurants can buy the vegan cheese and the vegan meat patties so that they can make vegan burgers, for example.
Well, now it's different.
And
it's more vegan meals, I guess.
Yeah, so but this attracts people, right? If you just say, okay, this is our offer, and we don't really care what you want, it's difficult. But if you look at what people want and then offer what they need, I think many things are possible.
Did we miss something important that we should talk about, like as the project or property-wise or investment-wise? Did we miss something?
I think we covered it pretty well.
All right, great. Let me ask you some of the questions, actually all the questions I ask every single of my guests. What piece of advice would you give to a newly beginning real estate investor?
So I think you need to consider why you're different. Like, what do you bring to the table that someone else doesn't? That you have your own competitive advantage, because everyone wants to invest in real estate, build real estate, sell real estate. But you need to figure out what is your special thing that you can bring to the table.
If the real estate market by any reason tomorrow just disappears, what would you do? What business would you be in?
I would open a board game cafe where people just come and play board games with me. But first I need to make a little bit more money in real estate to afford this.
Great. What does motivate you in the morning?
So I like to see progress, and I think it's really amazing to be in a building and to see how it transforms, right? So we spend a lot of money on materials and then labor, and I still remember when we bought this building what it looked like and what it looks like now, this transformation, and you can see this every single week it goes forward, and this is really cool to see this progress.
Love it. When you're out of shape or you feel bad or you just lost motivation or focus, what do you do to get back on tracks?
Actually, I don't have enough downtime to lose focus. So I think you're just like running and running towards your goal. And then you don't have to worry too much about like downtime or like motivation. It's just like focus on the goal and just do whatever it takes.
Favorite business book or podcast or show?
Hard to say. So I like all the podcasts and the shows where I'm featured. I like to talk more than to listen. Of course, I also have an MBA, so I read many business books, and there's many inspiring stories. I really like the story about NetApp hypergrowth, like how companies double every quarter, and what's required to be in these hypergrowth environments. But I think there's many types of advice that you can take from different people, but then you need to learn how can you apply this to your specific situation, because every situation is very different.
How do you want to be remembered?
I mean, if the people of Semkovo want to build me a statue, who am I to say no?
Oh, okay, I got it. How do people get in touch with you and can learn a little bit more for your project or communicate with you?
So we have a website, of course, colivingsemkovo.com. There's a link to my personal WhatsApp from there. We have Facebook and Instagram, so normally I'm pretty easy to find. People can also just Google me, Mattias Semkovo, and it should come up.
So you're active on the social media?
Yeah, so social is for us a pretty good channel to engage with the community and to also share like all the things that are going on. Great. Because this is also people want to see what did they invest in, who are the other people. So I think it's a great way to connect people.
Now I'm sure you have a new favorite podcast because you have participated in Banknote Ultimoti. So thank you very much, Mattias. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for
Good luck,
having me.
and I'll come and visit you personally because I love the place and what you're doing is great because you're developed a part of Bulgaria which has been put aside. So good luck, and we're waiting for your future projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much.